College basketball heat check. We are in the building. We have the head coach. I don't even want to introduce him. I almost want to let him introduce himself. He's doing so much right now. But excited about having the head coach here. Still in first place, if I'm not mistaken, right, Coach?
Today, yeah, as of today.
We had a game postponed today, so we got to steal him while he's in first place. They're playing as hot as anybody in the country and has really turned this program around. Is this year 3 or year 2?
Year three.
Year 3. COVID almost has his asterisk, so I was thinking 2. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So anyway, Coach, welcome to the show. So excited to have you, man. Kennesaw State in the building. Tell us a little bit about the journey. Don't talk about this team only, but tell us about the journey of you being a head coach so far. What has it been like? And obviously you're having success now, so it's a lot easier to tell the story.
Well, first off, Brian, I appreciate you and Eli having me on, man. Like we were talking about before we jumped on air, man, just to have this platform to allow people to tell their stories and their journey and, hopefully, doing it in a way where it not only benefits us, but it benefits somebody else as well. So I really appreciate you guys allowing me to be on. This journey, man, I think the thing I think about a lot, is, and I've heard my parents say it to me, but Kobe Bryant said it the best at his retirement speech when he was saying, people think that the destination is the dream, but the dream is actually the journey. And 3 years ago, when I was fortunate enough to get this job, you got all the great things in the world in your mind. You're going to do it this way, you're going to do this, and this is the success you're going to have. But and my dad, he said all the time, we can plan, but God is the best of planners. And it's been a journey, it's been a challenge, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, just because where we have it today from where it started, and the growth, the uncomfortableness that came with all of it. My staff, myself, the guys in this program, we're all better from it. So again, to go from 1 win in our first year to, we're sitting at 8-8 right now, 3-0 in conference, first place. And, it's a testament to, the great people we have around us, how we were raised. But at the end of the day, these guys in our program, they've chose to believe in each other and believe in what we want to do. And, it's been paying off as of late.
Yeah, Coach, I think just to go back to kind of the start of this journey and your time as assistant, I'd love to know what went into heading to Kennesaw State and maybe what attracted you to the job and this big opportunity.
No, great question, Eli. I'll tell you this. I've been fortunate, as an assistant to have some great mentors, guys that I've worked for. I worked for Tom Crean recently at Georgia, Brian Gregory, who was at Georgia Tech at one point, Doug Boettger at the College of Charleston, who had a big impact on my career. But Billy Kennedy, was my my college coach. I'm sorry. He was my college coach at Southeast Louisiana, gave me my start in the business at Murray State. And just his impact and influence on me, not only as a coach, but just really as a man, as a leader, as a father, as a husband, has been, really, really valuable, man. So that part of it has been great. Probably about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago now, actually, I sat down and I did a vision board, and took some logos of some schools that I, may have either worked at, visited, admired, or whatever it was, or knew a little bit about. And I remember putting the logo along with some other stuff on this vision board. And Kennesaw State was actually one of the logos, because I went to high school maybe 15 minutes from here at Wheeler High School. And so every year I would come back and, go to Lake Point recruiting or just recruiting in general. Man, you just see the campus grow and grow. And obviously being here in Atlanta, fertile hotbed of recruiting, knowing the area as well as I knew it, man, it was, one of those things where I'm like, man, it's got great potential, so when it came open, all you want is an opportunity sometimes, and when that opportunity showed itself, it was, you know, it was one that I wanted to go after, not knowing the ins and outs of it. But again, I knew enough about it to know that I thought we could do great things here. And I think we're on our way. You know, the job isn't done yet. Even when you get there, the job is still work to do. And I understand that, we understand it. And, you know, just, you know, we're really looking forward to what's coming.
So playing and now coaching alongside Billy Kennedy, and you spent time with Tom Crean and really some notable names in this sport. Is there anything in particular that maybe rubbed off on you, or some things that you learned from them that you have now applied to this job, or even just in life in general?
Well, yeah, I think if anything, I think it's leadership. And understanding, you know, when I think the biggest thing I learned from Coach Kennedy, and all of the coaches that I worked for, you know, they had this characteristic for the most part. But Coach Kennedy, you know, because he was the head coach and he was the leader, you would have never known, because he was such a servant, you know, of everybody in the program. You know, we took care, you know, I think a lot of people, you know, in those jobs at Murray State and at Texas A&M, you know, we wanted to make sure coach's job was easy. But I think we had that kind of battery in our back, or that motivation, because he was the example for us every day, you know. And when you see that, like, it always reminded me of my parents, you know, even going to play for my parents, you know, they were the leader of our house, obviously, but they were serving us as children at the time, right? But along with, you know, making sure that, you know, we had the right values and principles and beliefs, you know. So Billy Kennedy, I think what I learned from him was, you know, be the example that you want, you know, be the example that you know, of character that you want to see in your players. And not just as a coach, you know, his wife, Mary, and his daughter, AC, they traveled literally almost to every game with us. And just to watch him interact with them on the road, how attentive he was to them. You know, today as a husband and a father of three, you know, that had an impact on me. You know, I'm always trying to make sure I'm balancing it out as much as I can. But yeah, you know, that I think that was the one thing I took from him off the court. You know, on the court, you know, it was just, you know, have a defensive mindset. You know, that the defense travels. And that part, you know, I think you look at all the great teams in the history of, you know, college basketball. You know, even last year, I think people talk about Baylor and, you know, how good they were offensively, but you look at how good they were defensively too. And they were, you know, they were really good. Same with Gonzaga. You know, Gonzaga scored, but they were really good defensively as well. So that part, you know, I wanted to make sure, you know, from a defensive standpoint, that was our identity. Lastly, I would say this, you know, up until I worked for Coach Crean, I never really worked for a quote unquote offensive guy. And I think what I took from him was wanting to have a pace of play offensively that could match, you know, what we wanted to do defensively. So again, I've been unbelievably fortunate, you know, to be around some really good basketball coaches. Not just the head coaches I worked for. I've worked with, you know, guys like Chad Dollard, Jamal Walker, who was at Grand Canyon, Dusty May, who's the head coach at FAU, Steve Prohm, who was the head coach at Murray State and at Iowa State. I mean, these guys, Joe Scott, I tell you, at Air Force now, you know, in Princeton, and just to be able to learn from those guys was, it was really cool, you know, and you know, I think one of the guys who probably had the biggest impact on me would be out, and he's an assistant right now at Texas, would just be Jurg Malagi. Just, you know, his prowess and understanding of not just the game, but recruiting and things like that, and how he went about it. I've been impacted at a high level. So I'm just really fortunate of the guys that I've worked for and worked with.
You mentioned family briefly. What's it like trying to strike that balance between, you know, we've talked to a lot of coaches on here who are fathers, have little ones, or some that are teenagers. Like that's a tough balance. But I think a lot of coaches maybe take what they have in their coaching lives and try to apply it to family. How do you feel that you strike that balance?
You know, it's work. And more importantly than work, it's being conscious of finding that time and making that time. I find it a challenge sometimes because, in a sense, you know, my motivation and why I coach. You know, obviously I wanted to impact guys on a bigger level and help them learn from experiences I've had. But it's also, you know, my motivation is when I get up, I want to provide the best life possible for my wife and my two girls and my son. You know, so when I'm in the office, like part of me is like, well, no, like you're doing what you're supposed to do. But then at the same time, too, nothing's more important than being present. So what I try to make sure I do is when I'm at the office, I'm efficient with my time. I don't play office. I don't sit in here all night. I get my work done. I prepare probably as hard as anybody. But when I go home, those first 3 or 4 hours when I get home, I'm all hands on deck. I'm turning the phone off. The computer won't come out until my girls are in the bed, and you know I can stay up another hour or so and get some work done. But it's work, and I think that's anything. You know, you're gonna work at anything you want to be successful.
As far as this year's team is concerned, obviously huge improvements across the board, especially the offensive end. What do you think is maybe a determining factor in how this spark has happened, or just kind of how you guys have gone on this run?
Well, I'll say this. You know, we've been through some dark times around here, man. You know, going 1-28. We have 2 guys on our team still that have been through those times. Last year, 5-19, and I think we lost 7 games by 5 points or less, or something like that, something crazy. So we've been through dark times, and the majority of that team is back. And then even going to this year, I think our strength of schedule going into conference play was like 31 or 32. So we played some really good teams, really good competition. And what we've tried to instill in our guys is understanding that, along the journey, you're going to go through some challenges, but if we can learn from those challenges, it's the old saying, a loss isn't a loss, it's a lesson. And if you can learn from that lesson, eventually you'll break through if that belief in yourself and belief in your teammates stays priority number one. And coming out of Christmas break, that was the thing I think even more than X's and O's or, trying to get back in shape. We spent a lot of time together just talking, laying things out on the table, reminding each other of, what we said our goals were at the beginning of the year. And we recommitted, to what we said and what our identity is. And, offensively, we've been really good, but, to start conference the way we have, holding teams to 29% from 2, 28% from 3. Again, our identity, we want to be on that defensive end. So making that recommitment to each other and what our goals were, I think may have been the biggest thing, to put us in this place that we're in now.
Coach, talk about on the floor. I know you talked about defense. Obviously, you rank amongst the top of your league. That's part of why you guys are having success. What's the part you're new at this, technically, third year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what is it like kind of going through that process? And then what do you think as a coach, if you could pick 2 areas, I guess, that you've kind of like, okay, this is something we're going to be good at. Because I think when you naturally get a first head coaching job, you want to be good at everything, right?
Yeah, no question.
And then so now there's something that not only the team did, but you did in your shift and your approach to kind of zero in on some things. You don't have to tell us everything, but what's a couple of things you zeroed in as a leader?
Well, I'll tell you this. The first thing I did, I think where I improved was I had you hear coaches ask players all the time, like, hey, man, you got to trust me, right?
Right.
But the whole time, you're trying to hold on to the reins offensively.
Right.
You don't you're trying to take care of the ball. Slow down. Like I've let go. Last year with about 3 weeks left in the year, one of my assistants, Griffin McComb's like, Coach, you gotta let these dudes go, man. And I'm like, you think? And he's like, yeah, you gotta let them go. And our offensive numbers picked up. I told Boettger Burton, who's turned into a heck of a leader for us. I said, man, stop looking over at me, man. Call the game. When I want to slow it down, I'll slow it down. And he's done a heck of a job of making sure we take care of the ball. He's getting his teammates involved. So for me, I think I've learned to trust them, take my hands off of it a little bit and allow them to be naturally who they are, right. And teach from that. The other thing I think I've done is you hit it right on the head. You want to be good at everything, right? it's not possible. It's really not, you know. But I think what I've learned, and I've been fortunate. I've worked for some great people, but then I've also had the opportunity over the last 2 years to connect with guys like Coach Konzo Martin at Missouri,
Right.
Coach Kelvin Sampson at Houston, and the advice these guys have given me, Dennis Gates at Cleveland State, you know, and when they're talking about, you know, planning a practice, you know, making sure,
Right.
you know, you're hitting the things you want to be great at,
Right.
you know. And so I've improved in that area. Lastly, you know what I've done is I've left the referees alone.
That's a big one right there.
Wow.
Huge.
Wow.
I mean, it's kind of like it kind of goes back to it, and I've never sat in that first seat in college. I've done it on the grassroots, but that's not the same. But I have at least a little bit of taste. But my brother's a head coach. My wife's been a head coach. So I got a pretty inside look. And then obviously close friends. And it feels like naturally you want to control to make sure that it goes a certain way. And then referees is another thing. You can't control them, but you want to try to like do something to make it go this way. So it sounds like a big thing for you is almost like letting go with your players a little more and with the refs, and then just letting it be what it's going to be and leading it that naturally that way.
No, absolutely. Because I tell you, the thing I realized was in the, like you when you take over a program like Kennesaw, you know, and they've had success before in Division II. But when we took over here, like I felt like we didn't get any respect whatsoever, you know. So part of it was, man, I wanted to fight for my program. I wanted to fight for my team. But what I never forget this, man. I never forget. I can't remember who we were playing, but I probably argued with a ref 3 straight possessions, and I like something clicked, and I'm like, man, hey, what's been going on in the game? I'm like looking at my assistant because I don't even know what the last 3 possessions have looked like because I'm so consumed by and he's not changing the call or you know whatever it is. And I was just like, man, you know what, man, I gotta get to a point where I leave it alone, you know, and let them do their job, let them work, you know. And I'm sure it's been great for them, but it's been great for us too, because I've just been able to coach our team now, you know. And when I think last thing I tell you is what I learned from Billy Kennedy is, man, if you can be even keel, man, that's how your team is going to be, you know. He was the greatest that day. It'll be times as an assistant, I'll be wanting to lose my mind, like, coach, man, you got to go off on these dudes. You be down 20 at home, and he's like, man, I'm not doing it, you know. And they come out and chop it to 10, chop it to 5, and before you know it, you won the game. And it's because he stayed like this, you know. So he was the best.
Yeah, there's a certain element of that, and I give credit to you, and that's probably a big reason why you are in the seat you're in first place currently, and the big turnaround is like there's a certain part you kind of have to get over yourself a little bit.
Absolutely.
Because you're kind of making it about you now. So I'm a parent. I have 3 little ones. 5 almost 5, almost 3, and almost 1.
There you go.
And then obviously doing, you know, different things from a business standpoint, you just feel like, oh, I got to control this. I got to control this. But you're kind of making it about you instead of just letting it be about them and just leading the best way you know how, and then letting them have a chance to respond to it and have a chance to grow into those roles. And like you said about your point guard, if you're telling them what to do every day, and I learned this actually in marriage. I give a quick insight of my world. So I learned this in marriage that if I want my significant other, my wife, to be free, well, then I can't react when she does something that I don't like that makes her not feel free. So it's almost like a coach that says, well, I want my guys to play with confidence, but when they take a certain shot, you're just like going crazy. Well, they're not going to play confident. So I kind of had to take that same lesson so I can relate it to what you're doing. And you basically are saying, I'm not making it about me anymore. I'm going to make it about the team. And within that, we're going to win.
And that's ultimately, like, that's what it was. And I didn't, to be honest with you, Brian, I didn't realize that, you know.
None of us do.
And then it's like, you know, you get into the off season and you have time to like slow down and you got time to reflect. And I'm sitting here and I'm telling these guys I want them to be a reflection of me. But then I'm like looking at, like, I go back and I'm watching the games, and you know, I study my sideline demeanor, and man, I look crazy at times, you know, like just totally, you know, out of control. And that's how our team would play. I sat with Coach Coach Grant, Anthony Grant from Dayton at a down here at McEachern at a tournament. And this is no joke. Like I don't know Coach Grant, you know, well, but like he's a guy that, like, you know, over the years you watch him on the sideline, and man, he doesn't show anything, right? And so I leaned over to him, and I ask questions, man. That's the one thing I learned as an assistant, man. Ask questions, right? And even as a head coach, I don't have it all figured out. Ask questions. But I asked him, I said, Coach, man, you know, your sideline demeanor is so good, man. It's like, you know, like, how is it, like, how do you do it? You know, yeah, you know, he shared how, and it made a lot of sense, you know, and so not that I can, but the biggest thing he said was like, look, man, you got to be yourself, you know. However, you know, these steps right here are really important to take to make sure you, you know, you're representing, you know, yourself and how you want your team to be on the court. And so that's what I've tried to focus on. You know, and again, it's really about now, and it's helped me make it even more about the team. And I think our guys see that. Our guys, they'll come and like that. I tell you the thing I love about this group. Before I would say, hey man, like if you got a problem, come talk to me. You know, if something going, come talk to me. And not realizing that they didn't feel like I was as approachable. Whereas now, man, them dudes are coming, they say, Coach, man, you gotta coach us harder. You know, man, Coach, man, we, you know, I know you want to go in here and get after today, man. We need a lighter day today. Right. You know, and I trust them when they say that, because you know, they work, they get after it, they fight, you know. So
yeah, I think there's a part of that. It's like they feel like you're not going to be open to it. And I've been an assistant. We've all been there. We've all been that assistant that has to be the bridge. They don't want to go in there. It's like, well, they don't feel like you're open. So it's like, I'm wasting my time. But now it sounds like they feel like you're open, which is commendable to you, because that's such a big step when you have the right guys. I think about Nick Nurse was talking about this with that Kawhi Leonard team, kind of that collaborative leadership. Like, you have to trust your own ability to help make them better, but you also have to trust them and their desire to win, to let them have some say-so on some things.
Absolutely.
So it feels like everybody's in this together versus like, do what I say because I say it.
We literally said all summer, we would always talk about, hey, fellas, talent's not going to be the issue anymore. Right. You know, it has to become player-led. Right. You know, it has to become player-driven. And again, Terrell Burton and Alex Peterson, man, these guys have done a great job of that. You know, I think Chris Youngblood and Spencer Rogers, they get a lot of notoriety, and it's you know, it's granted. I mean, they're great, man. Those two kids, Spencer and Chris, single-handedly changed the culture of our program with their work ethic. You know, but Terrell Burton and Alex Peterson, you know, these guys are guys that everybody listens to. They respect them, you know. And so, you know, they become the catalyst, you know, of that player accountability, that player accountability, not only being strong enough to share it, but also being brave enough to accept it as well. You know, so it's fun to watch.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Well, we know you got to run. Last one, funny story for us. If you got one, either from home or from the team or from being a head coach, something funny you did is you're like, man, I forgot my shoes and I had to wear some Nikes or whatever it may be.
I'll give you an even better one. And it's not even from now, man. I think it's one of the best stories ever. So 2009, 2010, I'm at Murray State. All right. And we win the OVC tournament, and we're playing Vandy in San Jose. And it's not my scout, right? But it's my first NCAA tournament. And I mean, I'm pumped, man. I'm so hyped. Couldn't sleep the night before. And so, you know, you get to the gym. I think we were the second game. I think UTEP Butler was before us. So we get to the gym, and, you know, you got your hour before. So I go over in my workout clothes. Right. Well, go back in the locker room, man, to put my suit on, and my socks are at the hotel. All right. My socks are at the hotel. So I think I have a black suit, and I'm like, man. So initially, man, I'm gonna go out there like Crockett and Tubbs from Miami Vice. I'm gonna like, man, I'm out. Well, one of our managers has some black socks, and I'm like, hey, his name was Brandon Weisman. You might know Brandon Weisman.
Yeah, I do know Brandon. He was at Fresno.
Yeah, there you go. So Brandon Weisman, I'm like, B. Weiss, man, let me get those socks, man. Like, you gonna be in the back of the bench anyway. Ain't nobody gonna see you. He said, all right, man, coach, no problem. All right. So he gives me the socks. He has a suit on too. So he puts these white socks on. Well, you know, we hit a buzzer beater, all right, to beat Vandy in the tournament. And so on the dog pile, he runs and he jumps on top of the dog pile, and his legs are up in the air, his suit pants are up,
and his white socks
on, right? And everybody, they're killing him. They're like, "B, man, come on, man, you got white socks on, man. Like, you know, grow up." You know, they're on us, right? And so he's telling the story like, "Man, I gave my socks to Coach Amir." B. Weiss is like he was the, you know, the epitome of a team player, man. He's like, "Yeah, Coach, it makes sense, man. Like, yeah, take these black socks, you know." So
take one for the team.
Yeah, that's great. Like it was great. But that was like, that's what made that group of kids at Murray State so special, was like, man, they give you the socks if you needed them, and it was great. Yeah,
that's
no,
awesome.
no doubt. No doubt.
Well, Coach, we know you got to go. Good luck the rest of the way. Stay safe
and
keep up the great work, man. We're pulling for you, and you're welcome here anytime. We're rooting for you, and phenomenal job. Keep it up, man.
Man, appreciate you guys, man. God bless.
Same to you.
All right.
All right, we got to let our boy Eli break it down. Obviously, another big-time guest. You can see how he's become a head coach. Friend of mine. I didn't get to ask him about Be Ready Family, but I was going to. But we'll save that for next time. But no, just so happy for him and all that he's done to get to be a head coach. But then after you get there, to turn it around, so many times you're on the bottom and it just feels like you can never get out of it. And I just love that has this story, not just kind of getting middle of the pack, but going from worst to first. And it's only 3 games, but just to be able to be in that position and talk about the growth that he's had. Just, you know that gentleman is going to be super successful, and we're rooting for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Kennesaw State's been one of the really great surprises in college basketball this season. And just to go from where this team was in Amir's first year, as he said, 1-28, 0-16 in ASUN play. Second year, they were 2-13. And now through 3 games, it's 3-0 start. That's already the most league wins that they've had under Amir's leadership. And it's really just a testament to what he's done with this program. And I love the insight that he gave about kind of letting things go and, you know, letting the players play and just let the refs ref and just kind of take an easier approach. I think so often coaches who take over, maybe even first year coaches in general who are taking their first head coaching job, kind of be like what you said. They want to be able to control everything, and they want to make sure that, you know, all the boxes are checked and that everything is aligned. And it isn't realistic. It's college basketball. Crazy things happen all the time. And everyone is dealing with something. Even the very best teams in the country are trying to figure things out. And just to see where this program has gone, and in just a short amount of time, it's been really fun to watch. And they've already picked up a number of key victories, beating Florida Gulf Coast, which has traditionally been a great program in the ASUN. They beat them handily to win at North Florida. I believe that's the first time they've done that since the mid-2000s as a program. So these types of things really start to stack up when you see, you know, first-time accomplishment in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. 3-0 start in ASUN play. It's a huge deal for this program. They've got some guys who clearly have really bought in, and a lot of continuity on this roster. So, you know, these players like playing for each other. It's one of these teams that's going to be fun to watch. ASUN's a cool league. There's got a lot of talent in there. Liberty, of course, has got Darius McGee, and they've got an extremely talented roster. Jacksonville State, Florida Gulf Coast, as we mentioned, is usually in the mix. So plenty of opportunities out here for this program to get some signature wins and really try to build things toward the ASUN tournament in March.
Yeah, I agree, man. I'm excited for them, and just fun to see some of these programs that go from being, he referenced Baylor, that's probably one of the biggest ones that we've all seen and can point to, but there's been a lot of these teams and coaches and programs that have done it where you've gone from being at the bottom and get to where you're competitive. So love to see it. It's not easy. Anybody who thinks it is, you're crazy. So definitely much credit to him, and glad he came on. We'll look forward to seeing how they continue to fight in the league, and we'll be talking more Heat check